There are a couple of ways that we can deal with errors within a Spring Boot application. In this section, we're going to cover one of many ways. And if you want to further check other ways of handling exceptions, go and check the Spring Boot Masterclass. And we have a section specifically for error handling. So in here with project, what we are doing actually, so if I show you within customer service in here, we have this method get customer that tries to get the customer, and if the customer is not present, we throw an exception. Now this exception right here is being captured by Spring Boot, and more specific, there is a filter which captures this exception and then it turns it into an HTTP response with the relevant information. Now in our case, this is not really a 500. So this is not an issue with our server. A 500, maybe it would be if this was null. Therefore, saying null.select customer by ID, this would throw a null pointer exception. And this is actually a 500 because there's something wrong with our code. Whereas here, we're actually handling this request absolutely fine. Instead of illegal argument exception, what I want to do is to have our custom exception and then throw that instead. And the benefit of that is that we can change the status code that the client will receive. So what we're going to do is we're going to open a project within com.amigos code. Let's have a new package, and this package will be called exception. Inside of exception, let's say that we have a class, and the class will be called resource not and then found. There we go. So resource not found class extends runtime exception. And if you've done the Java Masterclass course, you should know the difference between checked and unchecked exceptions. So this right here, so runtime exception is basically, so runtime exception, extended exception. But here, if I scroll up, you can see that runtime exception is the superclass of those exceptions that can be thrown during the normal operation of the JVM. Runtime exception and its subclasses are unchecked exceptions. So basically, this is happening during the normal execution of our program. That's why I'm declaring it as a runtime exception. We have this class right here that extends runtime exception. Now let's have a constructor. And within the constructor, we want to have the second one where we want to send back a message. So here, resource not found, we pass a message, and then we say super message. So here we are calling the constructor for runtime exception. So we don't have to deal with it. So if I show you, go back to runtime exception, and this is a class, and basically we are calling this right here, which internally calls super as well. So it passes up the chain to exception. So if we look at exception, so exception also has the constructor. It also passes up the chain to throwable, and throwable right here. So this is where it deals with it. So if we look at the constructor, so if I go to structure and here, so throwable, if I click on that one, this is the constructor which that message is being passed to. Right, so if I close this, and this as well, and we are almost done. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to customer service, and let me hide structure, customer service, and instead of illegal argument exception, I'm going to say resource not found. And if you wanted, you could stick exception at the end, but I'm just going to say throw new resource not found. And then we pass the message. Now, if I reload the application and go back to Postman, and let's send the request again, nothing has changed. And that's because we're still having the 500 as status code. And what we really want is 404. Let's learn how to solve that next.